Hello and good morning, fellow griever. Today is the January 27th reading. I'm calling these daily nuggets for the month of January every single day, but they are in fact me reading daily from the Daily Stoic, 366 days of meditations written by Ryan Holiday and his co-author Stephen Hanselman. And if you go all the way back to the beginning of January, you'll know why I'm doing this. We have 5 more days, and I'm going to dive right into today's reading because it's a little bit longer. We seem to be kind of on a pattern here of a little longer, a little shorter. So today, the 3 areas of training. There are 3 areas in which the person who would be wise and good must be trained. The first is to do with desires and aversions, that a person may never miss the mark in desires nor fall into what repels them. The second has to do with impulses to act and not to act, and more broadly with duty, that a person may act deliberately for good reasons and not carelessly. The third has to do with freedom from deception and composure and the whole area of judgment, the assent our mind gives to its perceptions. Of these areas, the chief and most urgent is the first, which has to do with passions, for strong emotions arise only when we fail in our desires and aversions. Epictetus Discourses. Today, let's focus on the 3 areas of training that Epictetus laid out for us. First, we must consider what we should desire and what we should be averse to. Why? So that we want what is good and avoid what is bad. It's not enough to just listen to your body because our attractions often lead us astray. Next, we must examine our impulses to act. That is, our motivations. Are we doing things for the right reasons? Or do we act because we haven't stopped to think? Or do we believe that we have to do something? Finally, there is our judgment. Our ability to see things clearly and properly comes when we use our great gift from nature, reason. There are 3 distinct areas of training, but in practice they are inextricably intertwined. Our judgment affects what we desire. Our desires affect how we act, just as our judgment determines how we act. But we can't just expect things to happen. We must put real thought and energy into each area of our lives. If we do, we'll find clarity and success. So for me, grievers, how I apply today's passage in of the simplest forms to this grief and loss that we're living is when we talk about the first area of training of wanting good and avoiding bad. It's about wanting good for our life, only what is good and for our higher purpose and power, and avoiding the bad, which in the case of many of us grievers is the instinct. It's the pull to make the bad choice and give into the heaviness and the emotion, even though we want the good. So to me, and all 3 of these are going to tie back to this powerful word I use all the time, choice. So we have to make a choice to avoid that pull towards the averse or the bad, especially in the early days, because that pull to say get back into bed versus get up and do something like sit outside in the sun, we have to make the choice. The second one that he talks about is motivation. And I talk about this as a choice a lot too, especially in the early days, because that inner motivation is so clouded. And oftentimes we feel that we have no motivation. But that's where I encourage daily practice of gratitude and other things to just get that small amount of motivation, that choice to be motivated. And for me in the beginning, I don't disguise this. For me, the motivation was Alex. It was his life. It was not letting his life be overshadowed by his death. And eventually my motivation did become myself as well. But I had to start out with my motivation as my son deserves for me to shine light on his life. And so that was my motivation. Again, a choice. And then the third one, our judgment. After grief and loss, it's so closely tied to guilt. So we have to start doing that work, but we have to trust and use reason in order to have clarity in our next steps. And again, this involves choice to use reason over the pull to the averse, the pull to the downside. And so wanting the good, avoiding the bad, finding that motivation, and using correct judgment and grief for me all revolves around making the choice to work towards healing our trauma and living successfully alongside of our grief. Until tomorrow, talk soon.